All right, today we are going to be breaking down the Yolo County grand jury report that was just released. For those of you who are not familiar with me, my name is Marissa Barrera, and I focus on holding police and government officials accountable for their wrongdoings. So, this here is the report that we will be reviewing. This is a 32-page long report, and it is a civil grand jury report. So, it's important to know the difference between a civil and a criminal grand jury report because there is also a criminal grand jury investigation taking place right now. It has not yet concluded. However, I want to make sure you guys know the difference between both of those here in California. So, the civil grand jury is responsible for investigating complaints against government entities and ensuring they operate efficiently. It does not have the authority to indict individuals, but can recommend reforms based on its findings, and they do require a response. The criminal grand jury, on the other hand, is composed of 19 citizens who are sworn to investigate public offenses and determine if there's probable cause to issue an indictment. This process is conducted in secrecy, and the grand jury's decision to indict is based on a majority vote. The grand jury's role is to protect the reputation of those investigated but not charged and to encourage witnesses to speak freely. So, this report is based on the Esparto fireworks explosion. As you can see, it's titled Officials Knew, None Acted. So, we will get into a video I already recorded for you guys, and then we will go through the entire report. I'm going to also share a close up video of this explosion so that you guys can understand just how horrific this was.
Almost 9 months later, and Yolo County is finally offering their condolences to the families of the 7 victims from the Esparto explosion that took place in Yolo County. They are also recognizing the impact that this had on the Esparto community. That's a little late, if you ask me, and it shouldn't take a grand jury report coming out to recognize the pain, the trauma, and the devastation that has been going on since July 1st. So, what just came out is a civil grand jury report. It is not criminal charges. It is not justice or accountability. This is an official report exposing government failures and requiring responses from agencies and officials. This 32-page document confirms what families, locals, and reporting, like what I've done here myself, have been saying for months. Officials knew. Officials did nothing. This was not some freak accident that nobody saw coming. As someone who has submitted dozens of records requests on this incident alone, information has been there. We just had to look. The report states illegal fireworks businesses were operating in violation of county ordinances for years, no code enforcement. The grand jury clearly states that enforcing those ordinances would have prevented the deaths and the destruction from the explosion. County officials were confirmed to be aware since 2022. There are emails tracking this, there are building documents tracking this, because the site wasn't just running and going, it was growing, and they were expanding, and they were likely making a lot more money and storing things that shouldn't be there and too much of it. They knew fireworks were being stored there. They talked about possible enforcement, but then the conversation stopped there and nothing happened. One of the emails, Scott Doolittle states that he was told to tread lightly because this is being run by sheriff's deputies, ones that they work with. So when people talk about favoritism, connections, the system protecting itself, this is why. The grand jury report also calls out the Board of Supervisors. The board publicly claimed that they would have an internal review, but the grand jury found no evidence of any such review taking place. So yes, this report places the blame right where it goes, and it confirms systemic failure. But it still falls short of the kind of accountability these families need. The report states that nearly a dozen county employees knew about this over the years and still failed to take action. It faults county agencies, fire, community services, board of supervisors. The sheriff's, it says the board of supervisors fostered a culture of tolerance towards code violations, and that the sheriffs failed to enforce fireworks ordinance. So this was not just one person making a mistake. This was layered failure, institutional failure, preventable failure. The fact that the Board of Supervisors cannot follow through with what they say is extremely alarming, you guys. Also, we've talked about the Board of Supervisors before here, and there was a point where they seemed more upset about the money that this is costing Yolo County than the 7 lives lost, and I think they really should address that. Now, I think it's imperative that people understand the bigger picture here, and especially with Yolo County. Let's scoot back to 2014 when there was another very alarming grand jury report, and it was exposing the sheriff's department and what was going on there. This same Yolo County sheriff. The report was called Yolo County Sheriff Leadership Practices from the Wild Wild West. Literally. Ultimately, the sheriff was called out, the department was called out, these practices were called out and exposed. But did anything happen? Not really. So if this county can be exposed before, have to formally respawn before, and still end up with another devastating yet entirely deadly incident and report years later, people need to understand the difference between acknowledgement and actual accountability. Reports with no action, no accountability mean nothing. So if you're watching and you care, let's not let this end with a report that has no action. Let's not let this end with them being able to just hide behind their press statements. So again, guys, this is a workplace explosion that killed 7 workers. This is a workplace explosion that killed 7 workers. Sheriffs own the property. Multiple sheriff's employees own this property. 2 of them are out on paid leave ever since July 1st. OSHA has fined one of the businesses a couple $100,000 fines. And again, still no criminal charges. The AG refused to take this case, even though the DA's office and the Board of Supervisors themselves asked him to as well. He said, nope, no conflicts within the office that can stop them from doing the job, basically. No politicians have spoken up on this. Nobody in positions of leadership and power have spoken up on this or have reached out to these families. I think Yolo County, this is too far, too big, too deadly for anybody to ignore. Justice for the 7 lives lost.
So now we're going to review this video that is closer than a lot of them that I've shared that a lot of us have seen. So this comes from TikTok by a user and a neighbor by the name of Queen B underscore. Queen B underscore Mama Bear 530. Sorry guys, I got disconnected for a second. Trigger warning, it's pretty horrific to watch and just to hear, seeing it happen.
Oh my god! 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 They knew it was gonna go off.
That's it.
So as you can see, this was absolutely huge. And especially if you're familiar with this small town of Esparto, more than just fireworks. And again, like I shared, 7 men who were working there passed away from this. I've seen a lot of videos of it, and I've shared different things that I've seen, but I was just brought this was just brought to my attention more recently, this specific video. And yeah, it's really horrific, guys. So we're gonna come back to this report. So I'm not gonna read every little piece, obviously, but we're gonna skim through it and get an understanding of what's in here. So we have our table of contents, breaking down how everything is laid out. So we'll go ahead and pass over this because we're going to go through the pages. So no need for that. So about the civil grand jury, the California Constitution requires that each county draws and summons at least one civil grand jury per year to guard the public interest by monitoring local government. Per California Code Section 88.2, the Superior Court of Yolo County impanels 19 grand jurors. The civil grand jury term corresponds with each fiscal year. Citizens of the United States who have been residing in Yolo County for more than 1 year and are at least 18 of age with diverse and varied backgrounds may serve their communities as civil grand jurors. The Yolo County Civil Grand Jury is an official, independent body of the court, not answerable to administrators of the Yolo County Board of or the Yolo County Board of Supervisors, which is very much needed. So here they break down the criminal one as well. So a criminal grand jury weighs criminal charges, then determines whether indictments should be returned. Civil grand jury acts as the public watchdog by investigating and reporting on the affairs of local government. A, and then B, weighing allegations of misconduct against public officials. C, determining whether to present formal accusations requesting removal of public officials from office. So I'll start skimming through it. So the civil grand jury is to identify organizational strengths and weaknesses, and they are able to make recommendations aimed at improving the services of the county. They make recommendations to improve the quality and effectiveness of local government, which Yolo County so desperately needs, and they can make recommendations. So any entity that they are investigating must respond to the civil grand jury if that's what is requested, and recommendations within 90 days of the report. So that's for elected officials and agencies. So the next, okay, let's go to page 6. So again, this is done by a majority vote. So a majority, at least 12. And again, I don't think I said it, but this happened on July 1st, this explosion. So we're already going to be 9 months tomorrow. So, these families have been waiting for answers, and it's been it's been really a hard thing for them, clearly, but not having answers and just so many things that came about it. So, all right, so we have a map of Esparto, Yolo County. These are the different communities within it, some of the bigger ones. So the summary, July 1st, massive explosions at a family farm located on County Road 23 and 86A. So commonly known as the Esparto fireworks explosion. I call it the Yolo County explosion, but they actually named it Oakdale fire, which I don't think anybody calls it the Oakdale fire besides officials. Um, Esparto, 3,700 residents approximately. And the investigation happened by the state fire marshal, cited illegal activities as a root cause of the explosions at the farm. So this is where Devastating Pyrotechnics LLC and Black Star Fireworks Incorporated manufactured and stored dangerous fireworks without the benefit of local operating permits and business license. So it was all illegal, very much illegal. And what they don't state on here, which is important too, is actually right here yet. So there was another business operating out of here as well. That was Sam's Gun Sales. So Sam Machado is the lieutenant from Yolo County Sheriff's who owned the property. He owned the property with his wife, Tammy, and then his sister-in-law, Reiko, also owned part of the property. So, public records indicate that various top Yolo County officials were aware of illegal fireworks operations at the site for at least 3 years prior to the incident. And that's just what's documented. So, I have very much reason to believe it's more because they know that this had been, well, what the investigation found, they had been operating out of here illegally since at least 2001. So, no official oversight, no code enforcement, and they had expansion of the fireworks businesses. And that, we will go to the next page. So again, gonna skim through this, but you guys, if you want to pause and read the whole thing, I'll also link the actual report if anybody wants to go through it themselves. So prior to 2015, longtime Esparto residents remember the sound of a solitary explosion in the afternoon sky, once in the spring and another in the fall. So this, they're saying it was a signal to mind your animals because Jerry Matsumura, who was the father of the two sisters, so that's Tammy and Reiko. So he was going to put on an aerial fireworks display that evening. So what they're saying is he had been doing this. He was supposedly very much into fireworks. People know this about the family, and so he had been setting them off. But what's interesting is, as I've spoken to a lot of Esparto residents, it seems about pretty divided that some did know about it and some didn't. So let's see, lifelong Esparto residents and farmer, his fireworks, I heard it was a great hobby of his. Yeah, somewhere between actual business and hobby. And he was an active member of the Western Pyrotechnic Association. So, I feel like this extra is kind of pointless. Esparto residents for the fireworks display were a rare treat. Like, okay, but many people viewed the fireworks display as a community asset. I find that to be a little strange too, to be in the report, considering what happened. But the perception changed on July 1st. And what I've spoken to a lot of Esparta residents, they were not happy about this because this could have harmed so many more people, and other homes nearby were damaged, and people were terrified when this happened. So, so this explosion was felt and heard by residents in Winters, Woodland, Davis, which 20 miles away. The explosion leveled the ground and ignited what was named the Oakdale Fire, which I hate that name for it, but it expanded to 78 acres, including nearby properties. Again, 7 people died. Here are some photos. So the one on the left is, before, and the whole thing was just clearly just gone, just horrific. And, nobody really could have survived that. So these are just a couple of the photos provided. Some more of the destruction. So I'm not going to read all of this, but just again mentioning the daughters, they were the property owners. and as well as Sam Machado, married to Tammy. All three of them were employed by the Yolo County Sheriff's Office, which is crazy. Reiko Matsumura, deputy, Sam, lieutenant, and Tammy was the legal secretary, and she had worked with the coroner's division. And actually, Reiko was the resident deputy in Esparto. So how convenient for them to be having this big old illegal businesses happening on their property while they're running the town of Esparto. So, as I mentioned already, Sam and Tammy placed on administrative leave immediately. Reiko, it said that she, right here, this is annoying too because that's not even. So they're trying to say she was already on. This isn't actually accurate as from what I've read and gotten through record requests. Reiko Matsumura was on disability leave due to an unrelated injury prior to the explosion and retired from the department because what has already been said in the news, and she didn't retire to after the explosion. So what has been said is that she just didn't go back to work after the explosion. She didn't go back after that. So I find that to be inaccurate. And then she retired in September. So I got that information actually myself before anybody announced it because I was putting in record requests. So, over the years, Kenneth Chi, owner of Devastating Pyrotechnics and former business partner of Jerry Matsumura, expanded his use on the property, and it's said that he was paying rent there, and then has expanded, raised the rent. So, Reiko resided in an adjacent property to the north. Additional containers to hold explosives gradually appeared on the Machado property. So, Devastating Pyrotechnics obtained permits from state and federal agencies, although no local use permit or business license was ever obtained. So there's another discrepancies because it's already known that Kenneth Chi was denied a federal license. So let's see. As early as 2001, county ordinances prohibited any sort of fireworks businesses anywhere in the county. So this ordinance was amended in June 2025 to clarify it applies to unincorporated areas. Okay, so I have read through this, but now reading it again, I'm going to find more things that I find to be maybe not accurate, or because I have been researching this and through records request as well and following the story. So again, they continue to expand. And this is where we get into the building division of Yolo County being aware of this when they wanted to construct a new metal building. And they had this under labeled as ag exempt. So they were able to sneak and squeal and get out of being legit because, if you ask me, which I think it's pretty clear because of who they are, because of their connections, because I don't think any regular person could have gotten away with this for so long. So, an ag exempt building requires neither a permit fee nor inspections during or after construction. But the problem is, this was not being used for agricultural needs. So, I have reviewed the emails, I have reviewed the property documents and the documents submitted by the contractors. And so this is what is being said. The new metal building was near completion in April 2022. So that's the date that we know for sure that county officials from the building department were there and were aware. So they required an inspection tag, and for PG&E needs, for electrical needs, is what this is saying. So that not only triggered a meter release inspection to satisfy PG&E, but also resubmitting the building permit application as a commercial rather than an ag exempt building, because now it required full permitting. So they're saying the property owner, Sam Machado, and them agreed to it and the inspections. So let's go on. Oh yeah, and right here it's also stating they lied about it being stored, a place to store almonds harvested. So now we have Craig Cutright mentioned. He was the producer for shows. Craig Cutright was also the volunteer firefighter right there in Esparto. How convenient, right? And he was actually a resident on the property. He was renting Rayco's house. There are two houses on this property. Um, so he was living there as well, and he was a volunteer firefighter with the Esparto Fire District. So right here, this line says, according to available emails, records between Cutright and county officials, there is no evidence that county officials advised Cutright that fireworks businesses are illegal. That's even stupid to me to be in here, because he knows they all knew what they were doing. He's a damn firefighter in that very community. So to me, is like, did he go be a firefighter to be in this position, to be able to pull this off as well? So later, Craig Cutright, he's the one that started Black Star Fireworks, which also was operating here. He was with the fire department from February 2023 through July 2025 when this happened. And just a side note, I've gotten some records with emails between Craig Cutright and some other folks, and there was a time when he was saying he was going to leave the fire department because people were starting to ask questions, something in that manner. So makes me wonder what happened then, or were other people onto them? What was going on? So we're going to look at code enforcement. This is the email that I spoke about in my short video with Scott Doolittle, and the tip that was received about the pyrotechnics businesses. This is where he was going to go out to conduct an inspection, noting that he would tread lightly as the property was owned by sheriff's deputies, including deputies that they work with. So I shared that email already on the other screen. Let's go to page 14. This is very, very concerning, this page. This shows the orange, the ones that are orange are the different departments within Yolo County that were aware of the fireworks businesses, of the illegal fireworks businesses. And this is just who is documented for sure to be aware. I don't doubt personally that the Board of Supervisors were aware. But so far, we have, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different departments. So it's not saying 9 individuals, it's at least 9 departments. We have the sheriff's coroner, public administrator, county council, community services, hazardous materials, community development division, the building division, inspections and plan review, planning, and code enforcement. That is just ridiculous, unacceptable. And really, if you're from the community, and especially you're in Esparto, like, this could have, so many more people could have been harmed. So they're showing that January 2, 2022, building officials reported that there were, in fact, pyrotechnics businesses operating at that site. So they noted that Esparto fire officials had said that businesses were approved by the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, the ATF. So now they're just saying, oh, they thought basically they knew that stating that both safe and sane fireworks and dangerous fireworks were stored in containers on the property. Building officials also reported they had been told that the new building would be used again for agricultural purposes. And this still, just while reviewing this right now with you guys, it just still blows my mind that it's been 9 months tomorrow and, nothing. These guys are getting paid by the county still. So just showing here, the safe and sane fireworks are generally defined as those that do not leave the ground or explode. And then the dangerous fireworks, which they had there, a lot of them, defined as those that pose a significant risk of causing injury or property damage, such as rockets, large sparklers, and aerial fireworks that explode. So there's clearly both of those. So this is where it goes into that there was almost some kind of enforcement. County Community Services Department took steps towards a possible enforcement action against the property. And this was just after the site visit by Scott Doolittle. But within days, the conversation about this, it just ended. It just disappeared. So that probably says that there were conversations outside of this, maybe on the phone, maybe in person, anything that is not documented that took place. So by who, when, where, we don't know. Probably will never know. Only those involved will know. But again, the department failed to take any action. And the fireworks businesses continue to operate and expand again. So the grand jury interviewed numerous county officials, but no one could recall any further conversations or meetings about the site. Of course, how convenient. So again, community services department officials were aware that county ordinances prohibited fireworks. They were aware that they were doing illegal activity. And then that's what's interesting. County officials processed between April and June of 2025 an amendment to the county code section prohibiting fireworks, but no mention of the site. So that was right before the explosion. That is disturbing in itself because they knew. So again, they can't determine why county planning and code enforcement officials never pursued the matter. Bottom line. So although numerous local officials, including sheriff's deputies, fire officials, officials in the county building, code enforcement, planning, county council's office. So that's pretty high up, guys. They all knew about it. None of them took action. So we're going to review some of the grand jury, what they've uncovered as several possible contributing factors. So again, these are their words. We're following along here. And I'm reading the gist of it, kind of skimming through some of it, but trying to give you guys the full picture for those who want to learn. Given the long-standing use of the property for a small-scale pyrotechnics business, officials did not perceive the operations they observed while investigating the new buildings as any significant departure. So they're saying that these are possible contributing factors. And honestly, I feel like this is bullshit to even be said in here. Like we can't. How are you going to give these people that obviously knew that they were what they were doing in these positions of power, public officials, this benefit of the doubt? I don't think that is okay, and especially to be the first one here. So that's me, because these are other possible factors. That there is miscommunication between staff from the building division and code enforcement of whether enforcement letter had been sent. So to me, bullshit, you guys. I'm not buying it. I mean, I don't know, grand jury, were you guys being like trying to have an open mind here after reviewing all this evidence? That's crazy. So another one, possible factor. County officials believe the state and federal officials who had issued licenses for the businesses were in fact responsible for monitoring the businesses. The grand jury did not discover any evidence that the county had checked with these agencies. There's no record of CAL FIRE ever inspecting the property. I see that as another one that's like unacceptable, but okay. Another factor, possible factor. The county building and code enforcement divisions are understaffed in June 2022 and had a backlog of some 300 cases to investigate. That they're saying there's no record that a formal complaint was filed about this site. These divisions had no formal process for prioritizing enforcement actions. I'm not buying it, guys. So the code enforcement division relies on services of the sheriff's office for access to some property subject to enforcement. It's possible there may have been reluctance to antagonize some sheriff's officials by initiating an enforcement action on a property owned by sheriff's department. See, that's a little more acceptable. Not fully, but I could see that more, that people would be intimidated and scared to speak out. But it's still not acceptable considering the devastation and 7 lives lost. So none of these are good enough, if you ask me. So the next one, the grand jury received testimony that for several years, so I'm going to start highlighting. I don't know if it actually won't let me. The grand jury received testimony that for several years of the Board of Supervisors have given enforcement a low priority. The grand jury also received testimony that attempts to expand enforcement were rebuffed in part because the Board of Supervisors believe agricultural landowners should be allowed to have considerable leeway in use of their property. Provided they were not actually harming their neighbors or the community at large. Yeah, I think that's ridiculous. So basically, there's this pattern here that we're seeing, right? So next one, it's possible many Esparto area residents perceive the pyrotechnics business as a community asset. It provided employment, put on local fireworks shows, and donated fireworks to fundraising shows. So, something that I have read and been told personally, that people had reported this. So that people did try. And if you've ever tried to report police, government, sometimes they make it impossible. Sometimes they'll act like they're taking a report, but if you don't go and do it, put it on paper, if you don't get it in the proper way, which many people might not know, they might just not even document it. So I don't think that's acceptable. Finally, although no county official could recall such a decision, they're saying another possible factor is building divisions officials may have decided that attempting to enforce the county ordinances was too much trouble, allowing interest to gradually fade away. Okay, so these are the people that we as taxpayers pay to take care of these things. And they make a lot of money, guys. So this is not acceptable. Whatever the cause, the lack of documentation remains a significant concern. Good. So again, the business activities continued and with the new building in place, and it greatly increased. So when they're saying that the business expanded, that also means that money was up too. So remember that, guys. When we're talking about corruption, we're talking about favoritism, officials, money is also a factor. So now we're looking at the aftershock. So it was a series of massive explosions. If you watched the video that I shared a few minutes ago, the lady that shared that video had actually said that was the third explosion. So that's why she was already recording, and then bam, that huge one took place. And if you guys haven't seen some of my other videos, I have a bunch of reels out there so that I'm highlighting the victims and different details to this. So check them out if you haven't. I think it's very important to put the victims in the front of this, and just remember that this is a big deal. I do want to note that in here they said that some people might perceive them as an asset, that they're providing jobs. Well, it's important to note that all the workers there were from out of town and the Bay Area. They were not from Yolo County, and I find that to be interesting and a factor that needs to be thought about in a deeper way. Why were they only employing people from out of town? And again, Two of them were only 18 years old, straight out of high school. One of them, Jesus Ramos, it was his first day there, and he was there. Yeah, there were brothers that also worked together that died together. So it's really important that we remember that these were some teenagers also, and there was fathers there, fathers and a lot of children that are left without their parents, their dads. So on December 1st, the California Division of Occupational Safety and Health, Cal OSHA, they issued 15 citations to devastating pyrotechnics. So that is the business that they were focusing on. I don't know why, but I feel why wasn't, I mean, that was who employed them, but since there was another business running out of there, Black Star and Sam's Gun Sales, I feel they all should have been audited by Cal OSHA. So that's something that we probably got to ask, because if we don't, who will? Okay, so you guys, we are on page 17 now, and this is continuing the aftershock. So this is where the Board of Supervisors requested that the California Attorney General take the investigation. And, I feel like that was the right thing to do, which surprises me if the Yolo Board of Supervisors does the right thing, knowing their history. But they did, and the DA as well, as I mentioned in the video. And no, he declined to lead the investigation. He had confidence in the ability of Cal Fire investigators. So, and the apparent absence of the Yolo County Sheriff's Department, because they eventually stepped back. But it is important to note that once this happened, that's who was leading the investigation. Cal Fire came down, but they were involved in the investigation, I should say. The Yolo County Sheriff's Department, the fire, Esparto Fire District, they were all there. So they got to control the scene. They got to um, be there for the first, and I don't think that's okay. Also, it's important to note, I did share a picture of it, but when this happened, and this is documented, I've shared a video about it before. When the explosion started happening, somebody from the sheriff's department called and told the firefighters to stay away from there because there's a lot of ammo, and warned them, which of course we don't want more people dead. So it did continue to blow up even more severely, but there is a stockpile, of ammo and guns. So we do know Sam's Gun Sales was running out of there, which is questionable too, because they're not, if anybody that works for the county has another job, they're supposed to get approval from the county. So just something else to know. So the Board of Supervisors, where I mentioned that they were called out, the county, this is what they stated. Almost 2 months. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, almost 2 months later, the county has launched an internal review of its code enforcement processes, procedures, and staffing. Findings and recommendations will be presented to the county administrator's office and reported publicly to the Board of Supervisors for consideration and potential action. Their statement says that they reaffirm its commitment to public safety, accountability, and transparency, and will continue to keep the community informed. So that's where they got called out, because grand jury found no evidence of that. No thorough or systematic review of its own processes or procedures. So no group or individual had been put in charge of the review. It just didn't happen. I don't think that is okay. I have a lot more to say about the Board of Supervisors, but I will save that for another video. So the county has hired an outside legal firm to investigate activities in the Community Services Department. The firm's expertise is investigating personnel problems, not the structural problems within the Yolo County government that allowed fireworks. So the contract stipulates that the results of the investigation will be covered by attorney-client privilege, which means that may never become public. So, and I want to just mention as well, the amount of money that has come for the cleanup of this disaster for the district attorney's office and their investigation. And who knows what else? I need to put in another public records request, but it's up there. And where does this money ultimately come from? They have to take it from the budget from somewhere, right? So it's the Yolo County taxpayers and other services that are going to suffer because of this. And that's not even mentioning the lawsuits that have already been filed. The tort claims were already filed. I will do another video on that as well. So we're going to go back to the misconduct of public officers. So that's the next section that we are on. I'm going to expand this a little more. So again, the Yolo County Grand Jury is only one of several entities investigating the explosion. The DA is considering potential criminal charges where appropriate. CAL FIRE has investigated the cause of the explosions, and on February 2nd, published a press release indicated they had completed their investigation and released it to the district attorney with their conclusion. They didn't announce it, but illegal activities had occurred on the site, is what they said. And it's important to note that CAL FIRE, there's an issue with them as well, investigating it, because they were also warned about these illegal businesses. So there was a prior explosion just in 2023 that took place in San Jose, California, that was related to devastating pyrotechnics. There was also a prior raid in the Los Angeles area just a couple months prior to the Esparto explosion. And it has been documented that CAL FIRE was notified. So I have a huge issue. That's a conflict of interest. CAL FIRE was also in Esparto, California, the day of the explosion, just hours prior. And they were at the Esparto Fire District. They claim it was to do an inspection on the fire stand that was on their property that they had out there. And I find that to be very shady. So continuing on. So basically what they're saying is because of multiple investigations going on, that the civil grand jury has been cautious about the scope of its investigation activities. They say they're coordinating with other agencies and trying not to interfere. So most investigations by civil grand juries are confined by law to the administrative function. The result of this report reflects this focused scope. So again, I mentioned earlier that the criminal grand jury is said to be currently still investigating. So we can hope for some real charges to be recommended and that they will be honored. So if the grand jury determines that willful or corrupt misconduct has occurred, the grand jury may issue an accusation against a public officer, initiating a criminal charge. If convicted, the penalty from this offense is removal from office. So that is something that this grand jury could have done, but they're kind of saying that they're holding back, not going there yet because of the other investigations, as they state, because of the ongoing nature of other investigations. The grand jury at this point has not opened a full investigation into any individual under Penal Code 919. But the Yolo County Grand Jury reserves the right to launch an investigation as circumstances may warrant. So here we are into another very important factor, guys. Grand jury identified nearly a dozen different county employees who knew over the years of the pyrotechnics operations, the illegal operations that were going on at this site. None of them took any action. So it could have taken one person to stand up that could have made all the difference. And I know how it is to have to be that one person to stand up against people in power, against police. I've been there and I've done that and I still do that. So I know it's not easy. And I know people can face targeting and retaliation, but for those 12 people, who knows if I don't know if they're watching, I don't know who they are, but they know. County records show communication between most of these employees, some now retired, concerning the Esparto fireworks site. Despite this, there's no record that any of them advocated for enforcement. So none of them did their damn job. Let's be honest, guys. Back to the Board of Supervisors. So we're at page 18. Bear with me, guys. Anybody who is really following this, this is very informative and confirms a lot, as I mentioned, of that we already know. But the conclusion is that their failure of these employees to act is not solely theirs. The grand jury heard testimony from the Board of Supervisors over the years, fostered a culture of tolerance for code violations that percolated through county bureaucracy. So, gosh, my experience with Board of Supervisors has been terrible too, guys. I don't think that any of them should be keeping the positions after this. I really don't. And I do see some of them looking at my page. They know who they are, and they know they're guilty as well. They hold responsibility, and I hope they feel that. The Board of Supervisors have repeatedly rejected attempts to augment enforcement activities. The grand jury heard testimony that county employees believed the Board of Supervisors wanted them to take a tolerant approach toward code violations that seem minor. This was not minor. And again, combined with the fact that this was owned by sheriff's workers. They believe that is what contributed towards employees turning a blind eye at this illegal activity that resulted in the deaths of these 7 men and the destruction. 78-acre fire, damage to residents, buildings, agricultural acreage on surrounding properties. So we're going to go right into the aftermath. As mentioned, CAL FIRE investigated, concluding their investigation. They are saying illegal activities were occurring. So I don't think there's any denying that at this point. So the report has not been made public. And the 2 sheriff's employees who own the property, again, put on paid leave. It says as of July 10th. So that means they did go back to work, possibly right after this. That would be the husband and wife. Again, the district attorney pursuing potential criminal charges. Cal OSHA seeking the $221K. Local farming interests, Etta James Farming, they were the first to file their tort claim. The tort claim is the first step at suing. After you file, you have to file it within 6 months, and the county will then deny it. I know this because my family has sued in Yolo County. We have sued the police. We have sued the city of Woodland, and we're successful. So now, next page. So they were the first ones to submit their tort claims, and now there are almost 20 of them. And I have them all. I've been reviewing them all. They are very long and thorough. So I will do a video about that a little down the line. But there are most of the families, all but one of the families, have filed their claim. And then the other claims have been filed by residents, nearby neighbors that were impacted by this. So I'm surprised there's not more, but that's still a lot. That's a lot. Yolo County has never got that many claims against them at once. That is very extreme for any county. So State Task Force on Fireworks issued wide-ranging recommendations to CAL FIRE General Fireworks Advisory Committee. Meanwhile, families of those who have died have had few answers, but have filed a $35 million claim against Yolo County. And I got to share with you guys, the families are not the only ones that filed a $35 million claim. Multiple neighbors also filed claims that are at that amount. State firework regulators and several public officials allege widespread negligence for allowing an illegal and safe fireworks operation to continue. Okay, we're at page 20, making our way through this, guys. The grand jury's approach toward investigating Esparto fireworks explosion was compromised of the following methods: touring the perimeter, on 2 occasions observing the adjacent properties. They have reviewed various public available documents. As I'm reading them, I have reviewed much of these as well. So conducted more than 40 hours of interviews with 24 current and former staff and volunteers with history and experience with the county regarding the subject from the Esparto site, which from the Board of Supervisors, the Community Services Department, the Sheriff's Department, the Fire Department, and the Local Agency Formation Commission. They have reviewed record video presentations and minutes from the Board of Supervisors meetings. All those meetings are available online as well, guys, if anybody wants to review those. Various reports from a variety of local print, radio, television sources. Reviewed documents from county council. So budgets, business license information, building permits. I've seen these ones as well. Most of those. So reviewing the website of the Board of Supervisors in regard to the explosion. Also from CAL FIRE, California legislative information. I've heard that people are already talking about legislation to prevent this type of tragedy from happening again. Although, it happened really quick. It happened before, the talk of that happened before, these families even got any answers, as they still haven't. But I don't think, I think that this should have been taken care of. Families should get answers and then legislative things. I feel like that's a little quick to jump into that when this hasn't been addressed, but that's just me. So the Yolo County Counsel's Office, which normally provides legal services to the civil grand jury, they excused themselves from participating in this report, which is good. Grand jury concurs with this decision. Legal services for this report were provided by the Solano County Counsel Office. They're saying at no extra charge to Yolo County, which great because there's already been a ton of funds going into this. All right, so let's look at the next section. We're looking at findings. Some of this will be repetitive stuff, but the grand jury shall investigate and report on the operations, accounts, records of the officers, departments, functions of the county, including those operations, accounts, and records of special legislative district or other district in the county. So these are broken down into the departments. For Yolo County, illegal fireworks businesses operated in Yolo County in violation of county ordinances for many years. Again, that's 2001, that it's documented. Enforcement of those ordinances would have prevented death and destruction from a Esparto fireworks explosion. For the Yolo County Fire District, the fire district did not have the resources. So these are the findings, and these are what these departments and officials will have to address. They do not have resources to provide fire prevention programs for their communities, nor provide sufficient training for district chiefs and firefighters. So they can't do their job. Yolo County Fire Districts lack the ability to coordinate activities with other county districts. Yolo County Fire Districts lacks the ability to coordinate with other county, state, and federal agencies. So they're basically there, and I'll just stop before I say what I really want to say. Yolo County Community Services Department. So there's even more here. Community Service Department lacks appropriate formal training programs for new employees. Instead, instruction is provided formally via on-the-job mentoring. Community Services Department employees are not trained on a variety of county ordinances that would increase public safety and county revenues. They lack an effective electronic system for keeping track of code enforcement. Yolo County operational code enforcement procedures are ineffective and not in a state of control. Their systems are isolated across departments, which impedes effective exchange of specialized information. Code enforcement activities are sometimes performed without documentation or effective procedures to evaluate the quality of the work and its timely completion. A whole bunch more of them not being able to do their job, what they're paid to do. The lack of effective code enforcement procedures allows county staff to avoid challenging or uncomfortable cases by selectively prioritizing less critical activities. That they employ only one full-time code enforcement officer to enforce county codes across nearly 1,000 square miles in unincorporated Yolo County. On to the Board of Supervisors again. So we've already said most of this. So again, they're being letting people kind of just slip by, especially in unincorporated areas, towards new construction, businesses, not provide adequate resources for the enforcement and safety codes. We already repeated this, but building permits were issued from a Machado property. The following county officials failed to enforce fire code and county fire ordinances. So all of these ones, again, Department of Community Services, Chief Assistant Director, Principal Planner, Chief Building Officials, Supervising Hazardous Materials Specialist, Code Enforcement Officer, Building Inspectors, Esparto Fire Protection District Chief, Yolo County Sheriff's Lieutenant, and the Resident Deputy. On to the Sheriff's Office. They failed to enforce county fireworks ordinances. The lieutenant failed to obtain the required approval from the sheriff for his financial interests. So that's what I mentioned earlier. Did not get approval. They do not adequately review the documented outside employment by sworn officers. So that's another problem. They do not provide its sworn staff with adequate training on enforcement of county ordinances. So now we're down to the recommendations. So the grand jury shall submit to the presiding judge of the Superior Court a final report of its findings and recommendations that pertain to county government matters. So these are the recommendations for each department and they have to respond to these. So the Board of Supervisors, they must establish a fire prevention and inspection program in the unincorporated portions of the county, facilitate cooperation and communication among the county fire districts, and provide consistent and continued training. Act as the county's liaison with appropriate state and federal agencies. Direct the Community Services Department to establish an enhanced professional ethics training program that emphasizes employees' responsibility to protect public safety, recognizing reporting on public safety hazards, identifying and reporting potential zoning violations. So direct the County Community Services Department to provide annual training coverage, the county of ordinances. The training shall focus on employee responsibility. So let's see the sections, the following codes: county fireworks ordinances, zoning code for rural home occupation, agricultural zoning, building, and fire. So they're saying also another full-time employee, half-time is a clerical position, surveys, verification of construction being permitted properly. It's a lot, you guys. It's a lot. So they need to create a full-time position for an analysis, business systems analysis. So that person will have all these responsibilities listed underneath it. Assisting in documenting, creation of standard operating, facilitating incremental improvement projects, and even more under B as well. So a whole lot of work needs to be done. And this is just at R7. We still got a few pages left, guys. So let's just go on. I'm going to try to end this pretty soon. I got to get back to my life right now. But Yolo County Community Service Departments has a list of things that they are being required of as well, the recommendations. So R8, R9, R10, processes, operating procedures, training. And guys, guess what? All of this costs a lot of money too. So implementing systems, documenting, monitoring progress. Let's see, the Yolo County Sheriff's Department provide additional training to all sworn deputies. And you know what? I have a problem with solutions being I'm like, hey, let's retrain these officers because a lot of times they were already trained and they chose to not follow their training. So reviewing outside employment policies, audits, um, and some stuff we've already mentioned. So these are the responses. It'll show you the required responses, which are what we already reviewed, but here they are listed. So these are the required, these are invited. So these are requests within 60 days. Above is 90 days. They have names. So we have Woodland Fire Chief, County Chief Administrative Officer, County Council, Executive Officer. Lots of people involved. Lots of people have to step their game up and do their jobs, and also be retrained. Get a lot of. So here we're pretty much done, guys. These are just laying out the acronyms and what they stand for. Again, a glossary. We don't have to stop there, but you guys are welcome to review yourself if you guys would like to. And there we are. The last acknowledgement is that it was mentioned earlier, the Solano County Council assisted, and Megan Calloway provided support and assistance as they wanted to keep Yolo County away, apparently, county council away from this to be fair, which we don't know how it will turn out. How do you guys think it will turn out? Let me know if you guys have any questions and drop your comments, you guys. Again, this was a very, very tragic event that we know now was preventable. So this didn't need to happen. These men should still be here. And many of us feel like these officials involved, including those who turned a blind eye, should be held criminally accountable. So hopefully with the grand jury criminal report and investigation that there will be charges recommended. This is Yolo County, a county that has never held law enforcement accountable ever, like ever. And there has been some terrible things that have happened in this community. So thank you guys for watching. Drop your comments and let me know what you think.